some reason the guys didn't want to jump in. Okay, let's talk about the ovarian cycle versus the menstrual cycle, right? The ovarian cycle is once a month the ovaries release an ovum, right? Once a month they release an ovum. It's called the ovarian cycle. Takes place over 28 days, lunar month, right? And such. And so what happens is, then on top of that, superimposed on top of that is the menstrual cycle. So let's talk about that. This is two different charts. There's two different charts in the book, and I put the charts together so I can understand it better, right? This is day 1, day 5, day 14, and day 28, okay? So we're going to talk about the two together, yes? Day 1 is the menstrual phase, right? The reason a woman has a cycle is that she goes through the cycle and her uterus is prepared to become pregnant, okay? Until menopause each month. If she does not become pregnant, then for some reason they start it right there, day 1. Day 1 through day 5 is called the menstrual phase, okay? And that, of course, is the lining of the uterus, right? The endothelium flakes off. That's the period. Okay, at day 5, it's generally over, and you enter the proliferative phase. What does proliferative mean? To proliferate. Rats, right? Rats, you put 2 rats together, and next thing you know, you got 6 rats. And next thing you know, you got 24 rats. And next thing you know, you got 60 rats, right? Proliferative. A person that maybe they're a writer, and I was watching TV the other day, the guy's like, yes, I'm very proud of this book. It's book number 50. He's a proliferative author, right? But anyway, to proliferate, the lining of that uterus grows thicker and thicker in that endothelium, endometrium, okay? It is endothelial tissue, but anyway, okay? About day number 14 is generally when you're going to ovulate during the cycle, about day number 14, midway through the cycle, okay? Now, from day 14 to day 28 is called the secretory phase, okay? Secretory meaning that the lining continues to proliferate. The blood vessels, they're called spiral arteries because they're curved like a pig's tail, spiral arteries. They curve. The lining of the uterus is being prepared for pregnancy up until about day 28, okay? And such. So let's also look at hormones, right? Number 1 is the estrogen, okay? Notice on day 1, the estrogen is very low. That's when the lining flakes off, okay? But you notice about day 5, the estrogen levels come up, right? Estrogen secreted from the follicle, right? That's where it comes from, okay? Now, it gets higher and higher and higher till about day 14, and then begins to drop if you do not become pregnant, okay? It begins to drop, and then it drops off. And when it gets low again, that's the start of the menstrual phase, okay? Now, kind of the counter-regulatory hormone is progesterone. Notice progesterone's low. At ovulation, there's a little spike. And then, as estrogen is coming down, it's going higher, 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 higher until it begins to drop down, too. The estrogen and the progesterone. Okay? Now, notice too, at day 14, you got 2 hormones, right? Are they from the anterior or the posterior pituitary? Anterior, right? Because there's only 2 from the posterior, ADH and oxytocin, right? So, follicle-stimulating hormone stimulates the follicle, luteinizing hormone shoots up, right? And again, at about day 14 is when you ovulate. Now, ladies, it's supposed to be a 28-day cycle. Some ladies it's 21 days. Some ladies it's up to 40 days. Okay? So it's very common. Don't be concerned if you don't have a 28-day cycle. But it's very, what's the word I'm looking for? Variable. It's very variable. Okay? Now, ladies, when's the best day to get pregnant or book claims? Okay, good guess, but no. Come on, you got to talk louder. I'm an old white guy that can't hear, okay? Just buck it up and screw up your courage and tell me, what do you think?
5.
5 what?
The fifth phase.
Okay,
Day
yeah.
5.
Day 5? Okay, day 5? Yeah, no. You ovulate right here and about 5 days later, 5 to 6 days later, right? Day 14, 5 days later would be 19 or about day 20, somewhere along in there. Our book claims about day 19 or 20 is the best day to get pregnant, right? When you're trying to get pregnant, you go to the doctor, what does he make you do before you get out of bed every morning? Take your temperature down there, right? Right? Because he's looking for the temperature to do this. Every day it's 99, 99, 99. Ooh, it's 100. Ooh, next day it's back to 99. Guess what? That temperature spikes. Ovulation, right? Our book says even the Germans have a word for ovulation, that some ladies can feel it when it happens. I don't know, it takes 3 or 4 or 5 minutes, and boom, the ovum breaks out, right? But anyway, okay? Okay, first part is called the follicular phase, right? The follicle is making that estrogen, right? And later it's called the luteal phase for the corpus luteum after, it's called the corpus luteum after the ovum comes out and such. And anyway, but notice how first you have the estrogen spike, then you have the progesterone spike, right? And then you start all over again, yes? And 2, this is if you do not become pregnant. If you do become pregnant, the estrogen will stay up. I don't know if it'll stay up this high, but it will stay up throughout the pregnancy, okay? Throughout the pregnancy, right? Okay? So, any questions about this that I can't answer? Again, there's 2 charts in the book. I just put the 2 charts together. There's one on ovulatory and one on menstrual. I just put the 2 charts together because they're happening basically at the same time. They need to understand a little bit. All right? Okay. Now, okay. Let's talk a little bit too about menarche, right? The onset of menstruation. Yes? Now, when a young lady gets her period, basically depends on several things. Okay? The most important thing is the amount of adipose tissue she has. Okay? Leptin sends signals to the brain, right? And that leptin tells us basically how much fat we have on our body. Okay? And so it takes a toll on a woman to have a baby, to carry a baby for 9 months, right? The whole thing about you're eating for 2 and this and that. Yes? And so what will happen is, as a general rule, there's always exceptions, but generally, the women that are the bigger boned, they develop their breast first. They will go through menarche earlier. The little bitty skinny ladies, right? Much later, right? Because my theory is it's hard to carry a baby, and you need to be a substantial person to do that, and that we know that the little skinny ladies, it's later when they have the onset because they don't have any body fat on them, right? And such. So that's generally where that comes from, okay? The leptin acts on the hypothalamus. If the blood levels of lipids and leptin are low, then puberty is delayed, okay? That's what our book says. Am I wrong, ladies? I mean, you know you went to junior high. Am I wrong? Or is it the little bigger, substantial women that go through it first, and the tiny little bitty women are in high school before it happens to them? Yes? Yes? Right? Again, how much fat you carry on your body, right? Me too. I was later to go through puberty, right? But I had zero body fat for many, many years, right? When my friends were getting bigger and stouter and deeper voices, and not me. But anyway, okay? Amenorrhea, right? Erase this just a minute. Let's talk about that for a minute. Amenorrhea. A means what? Not or without, right? Amenorrhea, right? Not having menses, okay? Extremely strenuous physical activity can delay menarche in girls and disrupt the normal menstrual cycle in women, okay? Now, there are some certain world-class athletes. It's very common. They train so hard to be the best, and they have very low body fat, and for months at a time, their periods will go down. There's a very famous triathlete woman, and 1 year, I mean, she was at the top of her game. Boom, she quit competing that year, and she ate a lot more fat and meat and such, and she got pregnant, she had her baby, and went right back to it about 2 years later, okay? That's very common among young women. They're at the top of their game. They decide, I have a family, I want to have a family now, and such. But anyway, okay, strenuous physical, right? Anorexia, and let's see, it's called the female triad. I'm trying to think what the third one is. Strenuous physical, anorexia, and it leads to osteoporosis. Okay, but anyway, these things will cause anorexia leads to osteoporosis. Okay, but that hard physical training will interfere with your cycle. If you're training really, really hard, mainly more so for the endurance sports. Okay, anorexia will mess with your hormones. You will not have normal cycles, and you will end up with osteoporosis. That's very common. Okay. Now, again, usually if ladies stop training so hard and eat a little better and more calories, then it will come back and they can get going again. Okay. Estrogens rise during puberty and they fuel the girls' growth spurt, right? Yes? When do girls go through puberty and get bigger and taller and this and that? What age? 11 to 13, really good guess, really close, yes. Our book says 13 to 15, right? 13 to 15, right? It's very common in junior high. Who's taller, the girls or the boys?
Girls.
The girls, right? And then what happens in high school? The boys get it later, go through puberty later, and then all of a sudden, boom, then they shoot up, right? But it's very common in 7th and 8th grade for the girls to be taller than the boys. right? Yes? Okay. Males is 15 to 19, ladies is 13 to 15. So too, what that means is this, ladies. By the time you're 16 or 17, sorry, you're not going to be any taller, right? My boy grew till he was like 20. He's 6'4". I'm serious, right? My other boy, he's a half inch taller than me. He's 6'2". But yeah, it's not unusual for men for that to come on later, okay? Right? You grow, of course, to the epiphyseal plate closes. Yes? Okay. Estrogens, right? Estrogens deal with your metabolism, and it's common if you have estrogen that you'll have lower total cholesterol. You will have higher HDL. They call HDL, the good cholesterol. Yes, it's very common. Women have more of the good cholesterol than men, right? And estrogen facilitates the calcium uptake, right? So what that means is this: when a woman goes through menopause, she doesn't take up as much calcium, and the bone replacement, right? The bone repair, remodeling. And so what happens is she's not taking up as much calcium, and her bone strength goes down, right? Yes? So it's critical. Yes? Now, another one let's talk about, and that is heart disease. Who has more heart disease? We might have already had this discussion. Who? How many say men? Right? How many say women? Okay, yes. Women have just as much heart disease as men, but the thing about men is, men get it when they are 45, 50, 55, 60, 65, right? Women have just as much, but women get it usually after menopause. 55, 60, 70, 72, 75. Women have just as much as men, but it's later in the cycle because there's a protective effect of the estrogen, okay? Right? Now, there are some exceptions to that rule, right? If you're a lady who has a strong family history, if you're a lady who smokes like a freight train, right? Then you're going to get it much younger, right? But for a lady who does not have bad health habits, she may get it, but she'll get it much later, okay? So, anyway. Okay. During pregnancy, we talked about during pregnancy, the estrogen level is up and it stays up. And what happens is that you ladies know what the placenta is, right? Do I need to draw a picture? No? Okay, the placenta. That's where most of the estrogen during pregnancy comes from. After you have the baby, placenta comes out, right? And when the placenta comes out, the estrogen levels will go back down. Okay? Okay. All right. Let's talk about this final we're going to have. Okay. Okay. I got that black crap all over my hands. I'm going to be right back. I'm going to run wash my hands, and then we'll talk about the final. God, it's so nasty.
Stop. Stop.